sorry, 6:03. I believe John Wadowski will be here this evening. He has not called it. Running late. Yeah, I'll not excuse him at the moment. I'd like to move on to item number 1, which would be any public comment on any issue that's not on the agenda this evening.
How about you guys?
Anybody have any comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Item number 2, the Highway 40 agreement and alignment. I'll turn the time over to UDOT now, and they kind of maybe give a little history of what we've gone through and kind of why we're here.
So, while he's passing those out, I'll introduce us. I'm Jeremy Bound, I'm a project manager for UDOT. Eric Rasband is our planning manager in Region 3 at UDOT. We both work out of the Orem office. We've been, I think you guys all know or are aware that it's been a few years, but UDOT entered into a corridor agreement with the town of Daniel, with the town of Heber City, with Wasatch County for US 40. And one of the proposed locations for a signal is near milepost 20 on US 40. And one of the things that we wanted to talk to the council about is exactly where that would end up, flexibility of moving that a little bit. If it needs to be exactly at milepost 20, if it works to move it a little bit, we just want to understand that a little bit as we hear about other developments going on in the area, and we want to make sure that that signal goes in the right location, where it's been planned, where it's going to work. We want to make sure we're following the agreement that we're already in, but understand from the town of Daniel where that might work best for the road that would end up at that signalized intersection going into Daniel if a road goes in there. So that's kind of where we're at. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've handed out some maps that were attached, that were an attachment to the corridor agreement. That kind of show these locations, and so I guess really just kind of getting some feedback from Daniel about that milepost 20 location and how we feel about exactly where that needs to end up. Don't know if you guys have a lot of information there yet as far as proposed roadways in the future possibly. I know right now it's not developed there, and I don't know what the plans are to develop in the future, but is there anything else you wanted to add? Or?
Yeah, in December we had a meeting, a joint meeting with the town of Daniel, Wasatch County, and the town of Independence, and there was some concern, and so really we just wanted to see if there's any flexibility, and if there is, great. If there's not, then we'll go back and make those adjustments, or we'll work with the town of Independence accordingly on where that access point comes.
Okay. Any questions the council might have, maybe to get any updates from them that, any clarity that you might want or need for what we're talking about, which would be I believe the mile marker 20 access, that's what we're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
So we talked to the council last month about that access, and I believe we voted to keep it at 20. We realize that within 250 feet that won't be messing with the agreement, and there's probably some room in there to work in that 250 feet.
Okay.
I don't know, Eric, if you want to add any more to that with the lining of where that might come in.
Yes, so what we're looking at is, what I brought to the council last month was 250 feet south, which lines up with just about where Ed Houston's driveway is. So we do have another point where several properties meet. The reason that was back here today is because this is the town's opportunity to bring Independence into that agreement. Everybody has a copy of that agreement on the council. It's in your packet. And so you can see what that entails. There was a lot of work went into that. And so what this UDOT's here to help us and facilitate with Mountain Land Association of Government to bring Independence into that agreement. The current agreement that we have ends at Little Sweden Road.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking at is to extend that agreement to the edge of our town. So we don't have to do this every time there's a new road proposed. So it gives us the opportunity to bring those into the agreement, Independence, and to identify on the map where the intersections will be. We have development on our side, Independence doesn't yet. So that gives the town the opportunity to put the intersections where they need to be. Of course, that little paper I passed out to you has that little table right there is the spacing of the intersections. So that's why I gave that information to you. You can see that it gets a little bit wider. Where does that change at, Barry?
Well, just south of Tammy Lane to Daniel Summit.
So just south of Tammy Lane, is that still region, is that 4? Is that still?
Is the access category 4.
4.
So, just from a statewide perspective, any state highway, we have access categories, which we're really looking at traffic signal spacing, street access points, and private development access points. US 40 through this section of Daniel and Independence is what we term a limited access highway. And so there's much higher restriction on where access points get put in. And that was really the essence of this corridor agreement, is to set some categories of that spacing. So in this area, are we north of Tammy Lane?
We will be north.
Okay, so in that area, it's an access category 5, which means traffic signals are 2,640 feet apart, basically a half mile apart. Minimum street spacing is 660 feet. Typically, those would be right in, right out street spacings, and then access spacing at 350 feet. Those access spacings on a limited access highway would have to be purchased by a developer or a property owner if they don't already own that access point to US 40. The thought there is that we would like to work with the municipalities and have street spacing, and then the business or property owners would access off of the local government street that would access US 40 at that 660 feet spacing. And that's really to keep US 40 as a regional corridor that serves the trucks and the automobiles out to the Uinta Basin and into Salt Lake County area.
So from our last meeting we had, not this meeting, but meeting with you, it kind of turned also that bringing them on board with the agreement.
That would be an option that we would try to do. We'll see whether or not they're willing to do it. We don't.
That would kind of be a precursor once again to make it all flow properly, so.
Yeah, we did visit with the Attorney General's office on where we're at. We do have a signed corridor agreement with multiple entities that went through a regional planning process, and this is really the starting point of the conversation, based on what was agreed to in 2017. We're looking to Daniel to see if there's flexibility. Great, we'll work with that flexibility and move forward.
If the, yeah, just with that, as you continue to grow and if development starts occurring, one thing that does become beneficial to the department is just a transportation master plan, eventually turning that into a map. I know you guys work a lot with MAG and stuff, and I think you guys basically just adopt MAG's. Not just, you guys talk about it and you work with MAG and eventually get to where you feel like you guys can adopt MAG's plan and stuff. But that's something that could also give you guys a lot of strength to support this, that transportation master plan.
So when they come to you, you're gonna say, come to them or come to Daniel? I mean, I guess the next step from you guys, you just stand back and then let the process.
Who's them?
I'm Independence, trying to get this,
Based on what happens here, we will go back to the town of Independence and initiate a conversation with the town. And then, based on those conversations, we may or may not bring the developer into the conversation.
So, and one of the reasons why we're trying to work with you guys is where those signalized accesses go, they really need to be a four-way intersection. It can quickly get to the point where it can cripple a state or a US highway like US 40 if we have a whole bunch of T intersections that don't line up and people trying to come out and stuff like that. So a whole bunch of right in, right outs really don't serve a corridor like this very well, and so that's why we're trying to get some thoughts from the town of Daniel, why we try and work with the town of Independence, so we can make sure that we still serve your needs, still serve our needs, and then bring them into this as they're requesting access to the highway. So,
So what's the problem with the milepost 20? It would be a T intersection, I understand that, but.
right now, it's not planned, our thought is it's in the corridor agreement, and when it's signalized, it should be a 4-lane intersection. The development that's proposed on the Independence side was looking to see if there's flexibility to move it south a little bit for how they plan their development, how they're planning the entrance to their city. They're looking for flexibility to move it south. And so we're just asking the question at this point, and then we'll go back and give them the answer.
Did they have a good reason for not participating in the original discussion?
Do they have a good reason? Is that what you asked?
That's, were they invited to participate?
They were invited to participate.
And so.
The answer I got from the mayor was, the meetings he went to, he felt like we weren't addressing his concerns, and so he dropped out. He felt like most of the conversation was over on 189, which doesn't concern him, and so he didn't feel like it was addressing his concerns.
So basically, we're asking everyone else to accommodate independence. Is that, I mean, that's my assessment, is that?
I'm trying really hard to make it not feel that way and to explain to you guys that, and that's why Eric said this, we verified with our Attorney General and stuff, that this is our starting point. This is, we have a signed agreement, this is where we're starting from. And the only reason I'm asking the question about flexibility at milepost 20 is because it was picked based on this is halfway between the signal here and the signal here, which gives us our half-mile spacing. And there's not really any development yet. I haven't seen any plans for roadways in this area, so that's the only reason why I felt like maybe there is some room for flexibility. Maybe you guys have looked into it since this was signed and have said, oh, you know what, maybe it does make sense for the road to be a little south of here or a little north of here or whatever. And so I was curious when I was given this assignment to find out what has happened in this area, what is the plan. If it's, hey, we have a corridor agreement at milepost 20, we have 250 feet of flexibility, that's the answer, I can work with that. I just need to know what the answer is.
Okay, and so if we agreed to be flexible with that 200 or 250 feet, whatever, you'd still want a 4-way intersection. So do we have a reason or a way to accommodate that?
As long as it don't go past 250 feet south, it becomes a problem for us as a town, for what we
So
kind of plan
250
on.
would be the maximum.
That's, at this point, it would be, and right now it's at 20, so that's kind of what we're saying.
I think the question is, do you want a city street on a property line of existing properties, or do you want to split property? And that at the end of the day is a question.
Yeah.
That's my question, how do we accommodate the town to accommodate a 4-way intersection?
At that location.
And he was talking about the property line right where that is.
I was gonna say, it was halfway in between, but in addition to that, it was sites where we only needed a couple of those vacant parcels, which would make it happen. By moving it south, we encumber other parcels, and so it makes the intersection, there's a lot more players. When we move it 250 feet south, there's more players that become involved. It doesn't make it impossible. I mean, if you turn off the parcel map and draw the line, it still works really well. But there's a lot more players when you turn the parcel map back on by moving it south.
And that's why we need to talk to you guys to see if that even makes sense for you guys and how it works for you guys, right? I mean, if it's,
I would think that we'd want to get an agreement and then move forward myself.
Well, that's why it's back here, because if we have the 20, we're at 20. If we're looking at flexibility, this is our opportunity to work with Independence, bring them back into the agreement, so we're not doing this all the way up the highway. Our RA1 is in that purple area. We should be able to get that and within this agreement, work with Independence and get those future signalized intersections on the map so that we're not doing this every time we gotta move. So 500. UDOT has indicated that 250 feet is not, how did you put it?
problematic for the signal spacing.
Okay, for our agreement, we don't have to redraft the agreement for that.
It won't affect the Little Sweden?
No, we're still good with that.
Yep. And we support that being on the corridor agreement with Sweden, so.
So that was my biggest thing, is this is our bargaining chip to bring Independence into the agreement. And I think our 250 feet is what we weigh against bringing them into the agreement so that they're on board and we don't do this again.
If it makes sense to you guys, yes.
I think we should be adaptable if we can, but I wouldn't want to make it more difficult for Daniel, our property owners, to, cooperate.
Mhm.
Cooperate.
Right.
It would be great to get this finalized and, like, as you say, get it all the way to the end of town so it's set and we don't have to come back and deal with it again. But I'm still concerned about Independence not having been willing to participate. And if I understood you correctly, they aren't at this point involved in this process. You're asking us. If we'll be
We've had
involved.
conversations with them. They indicate that they would like it further south than even 250 feet south, and we've told them, hey, we're gonna go talk to Daniel and see if they have any flexibility at all. What flexibility do you guys have? And so we're talking to you guys now, we'll talk to them, and if they, I mean, ultimately, they still have to come to UDOT to get access to US 40. Right, like Eric mentioned, that's a limited access highway. It's not like they can just say, hey, we're putting a road here. They have to get permission from us and buy that access. And so we're just seeing what can be done, how we can make this work. We do not want to negatively impact the town of Daniel, and so that's why we're saying, does it work for you guys or not?
Any other questions? I would say probably we would want to let them know that the first option is get them in the agreement, and that would help us finalize our agreement.
Okay. Okay. We can do that.
That'd be the right hands on the others.
Yeah. And then who it's going to affect in the property.
Correct, yeah,
owners.
that's, we
Yeah,
want that to be.
I don't know who that
It is
is.
discussed.
It might be worthwhile at that point to sit down with Eric or the mayor or
Yeah.
whoever you tell us to, sit down with a parcel map and really zero
who
on
that's
exactly
gonna
who
Who it would
that's.
impact.
So really what I'm asking tonight, I guess, is permission to continue negotiating on that 20 miles and try and get all we can for our movement on this agreement.
I agree with that.
We would ask that the city really look at the particulars on parcels and where it works best for the city.
Yes.
And do.
Me neither. That's why I asked that
Yeah.
question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So did you get your answer?
Go start off.
We got a answer and we can go from there.
I think what we're told is to try to get an agreement.
Okay, I think that's our bargaining chip. That's all.
Eric, if we, is Eric, we're gonna give you a point of contact. If you can maybe look at the parcel, and if we can help you with that, let us know what your address is.
Okay,
That'll just further the conversation.
okay.
Where do you want to leave these with them? You guys have,
Yeah. This is an aerial, they're tip marks, basically, a 3-foot spacing. If you want to draw on those, let us know.
thank you guys.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes.
Yeah.
That takes care of item number 2. We'll move on to item number 3 with the Heber Valley Flight Path meeting update. I'll turn that over to Stephanie for that update.
Okay, I'll be really quick on this because we have a big meeting ahead of us, but last week I had 2 meetings. I had my second Community Advisory Committee meeting, and what we went over on that is they were collecting constituents' comments and how everybody feels about the airport, and so they also went over how you guys are getting the information. So the information, you guys, is on social media, it's on the web, it's on their website. Their website is on our website now, so there is a link to the Heber Valley Airport flight path. So you can get information, you guys can ask questions about what's going on with the airport. I encourage you all, if you have questions and you want me to bring them to the meetings, email me, I'll take them to the meetings. But you can also go to the website and they'll get them answered for you. And that it may have already been answered for you on, the growth of this airport. On Wednesday of last week, there was a public meeting, and that was in the paper, it was on their website, it was on our website, and it was on social media. It was a really good turnout. And so basically, they just went over the agenda for the next 2 years, and how that's gonna lay out, and what their plans are in the next public meetings. I can't emphasize enough the importance of you guys, if you guys are for the airport expansion, against the airport expansion, be voicing your opinions, and if you have to do it through me, do it through me, and I'll get it to the meetings, and I'll be meeting about every other month. But there really was a good, they had question and answer breakouts after the meeting. Anyway, and there'll be about 6 more public meetings afterwards, or here in the future, but just be looking for those.
Any questions? Thank you, Steph. Appreciate it. Item number 4 would be discussion of Daniel Irrigation Pipeline, which was continued from last month. I don't know, Doug or Larry or you? Okay.
My name's Hugh Barker, and I'm president of Daniel Irrigation Company. I'd like to thank the council for allowing us to come here again this month. Basically, in a nutshell, there's a new subdivision, Hebrew Meadows North, that's one of our trunk lines is going through their subdivision. They've got to relocate it. And we'd like to put it down 3,000 south, so we're here trying to get permission from the town to run it down 3,000 south from 1,200 east to approximately 700 east for about 5 blocks. And last time it was tabled because they had some other issues, and me and Doug had met with them, talked to them about them issues, and we just want to know where we kind of stand at this point.
So the town went ahead and we went to the time and expense to put a first draft together for an agreement that may work between the town and DIC. Probably that's about ahead as far as we can get with it until maybe you work with us and try to solve the other problems that we talked about. Try to help. So that's what we put together for an agreement for that project that you're referring to.
Okay. And
Well, and the points beyond too.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he was looking at long-term, right? Just not this one.
correct, and we'll run Little Sweden in a couple of years.
More designs and
Other designs.
future designs.
So the agreement considers all easements in the town. So it's not just this project, but how all irrigation lines in the town would be run in town right of ways. And so the agreement the agreement there isn't just for this 3,000 South project, it's for working together throughout the entire town, just to clarify.
So this thing's just a draft, Hugh. We
Okay.
just wanted to give it to you so you'd be able to look at it, see what you guys think. I think we still have work to do between us before that agreement's signed and done, but I think we're headed down that road.
Okay, as you're aware, we're kind of in a hurry to maybe get this pipeline in before the start of the season. If not, the town, or the developer will have to put it down his, and we'll lose out on like $100,000. So, and we need to have this pipeline up and running before April 15th. So that's where we're kind of stopping a bit to get going. I don't know if
Is
there's.
it worth another meeting this week that we could get together and try to solve any other issues, or do you think that's not gonna be able to happen?
Yeah, we could meet for sure. Would it be appropriate to talk about some of them other issues here in town?
If you tell it would be.
Okay, well, from what me and Doug kind of understand, we believe that some of the other issues to do with the Storm Haven water right you guys acquired from the well right up there. Is that correct? Is that
That's one of the
something?
issues,
Okay, I brought Devin, who's also on our town board, not town board, water board. And he knows a lot about these water rights, and if you wouldn't mind listening to him for just a minute, then we can have a meeting next week or something.
Sure. And so, Devin,
Yeah, Devin,
come up
if
and
you'd like.
speak. Sure. Your name for the record, I know you've done it many times.
I'm Doug McCrolla. I'm a shareholder in Daniel Irrigation Company and a board member of Daniel Irrigation Company. And been I've been working with the board and with developer with long-term master plan, best way to provide long-term irrigation service in the town of Daniel. And one of the things we came up with was this pipeline running in the street. So we know from experience and from other entities that we've worked with that in the long term, that's the best way to provide service to residents of a town, especially as things change from agriculture to other uses a lot of times. So that's what we're working on. I'm not 100% sure of what the issues are on the water rights with Storm Haven. I understand the town of Daniel acquired a water right, and they were making a request that, I don't know, what is the request?
Well, that's probably the law, that's a whole another discussion that we probably need to meet because there's a lot of fingers to that. But basically, there's watershed right that made probably some mistakes that none of us made that were caught in a transfer when the new well was going to be drilled. And so the state has accepted some shares and acre feet that don't really make sense to a lot of folks right now, but they did accept it, and it was also challenged, and it was still accepted after that. So, from our standpoint, from the town standpoint, those shares belong to the residents of this town, and so I can't feel comfortable not trying to get those shares back for our town. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, so I agree the shares probably belong to the town. Dan, you have 15 shares of stock.
Or 60 acre feet, and that's where the question comes in.
Okay, so the 60 acre feet, I think, I did review that, a couple of exchange applications that both of them did the same thing, as they had 15 shares of stock and applied for a 60 acre foot water right. In both of those cases, the irrigation company protested those exchanges, saying there was not 60 acre feet associated with 15 shares. And the state did not address exactly how much water was with each share, but they did acknowledge back that they weren't concerned with the amount of acre feet as long as the company and the person doing the exchange limited their use to the volume that the company allocated to those 15 shares. And so regardless of the numbers shown on there, and I think the record shows, the memorandum decision shows that's the case. One of the concerns I know the company has is we're subject to state code under the Nonprofit Corporations Act. And in that act, it specifically says that each shareholder is entitled to an equitable and equal and proportionate share of the company's water rights. And so for one shareholder with 15 shares to want 60 acre feet and another shareholder to get 12 acre feet from 15 shares, we cannot legally do in any way, unless we were to amend articles or do something else to change those shares and get approval of shareholders to do that.
And I've heard that scenario and others, and that's why it's kind of been out of our hands for the last year. And with the adjudication coming up, we know that this will probably get worked out, and probably most likely they'll send us back together and try to work it out between us and you and your board. So, hopefully we can get it worked out sooner than that.
Yeah. Adjudication likely it'll probably be a year and a half, 2 years before a proposed determination comes out.
We'd like to meet next week.
Yep. And so on this, on getting the pipes, haven't been able to see the agreement yet, but being able to install pipes, one of the things, and I don't even know the rest of the board was up on this, but I kind of argued and discussed with them the need to move those pipes from the back lot of homes and get them out in the front if we're going to do the best thing in the future. And I know the company determined it's going to cost them about $60,000 to do that. But they're willing to do it, to spend that extra money to get that line in a better place for the future. If we don't do it, of course it'll cost us nothing. We'll still be able to service our customers, but that line will not be relocated in a place that's best for the long term. So, and if it is relocated in the future, it'll be at a lot higher cost. So I think we appreciate getting the agreement drawn up. I'd like to look at it. I think our whole board would like to look at it. If the agreement is it self-encompassing for the pipeline? Or is it hinging on other?
No, this is on agreement between us and you for all the future and
Okay.
bringing things into.
His use of right-of-way?
Yeah, again, it's modeled after a generic franchise agreement between utilities and the city. So it is not, it doesn't have anything of these other water rights issues.
Okay.
It's just generic, the company's obligations and the town's obligations for sharing right-of-ways,
Okay.
similar to,
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to have time to look at that agreement, and if we agree, that's where I'd like to be able to move forward with getting pipes put in the ground.
I would think that after tonight, we can set up a meeting whenever, however, I don't know how free Eric is, but I'm pretty free over the next few weeks. A meeting can get put together pretty quick, and I can certainly be there myself.
All right, and I think, in the future, Daniel Irrigation, Daniel Town we're like this.
Wanna be.
We're intermingled, and we have to be, and I know our future's that way. In this case, we have a little bit of Heber City coming over, and we'd really prefer to not have, Daniel Irrigation lines running through those city areas as well. Somebody's willing to pay, at least for the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, we can get that changed, so thank you for your time.
Just before you go down, got a question for you. So on versus the 12 versus the 60, is there a legal way for the Daniel Irrigation to help the town purchase additional shares and work with the town so we can make that water right whole in that subdivision?
I don't know about purchase additional shares.
As when they come up for sale, or if you guys have ones that are turned in for assessments?
Does the town need that I guess you need 60 acre feet.
And build out, we need more.
Yeah, so
We
we,
need even more.
yeah, we need about 600 acre feet for build out in the town
Yeah.
that we can move over, but that's what we're looking for. What can the irrigation company help us do as we facilitate this agreement?
Well, I do think as time goes on and there's the need in the city, that the company can definitely accommodate and work with the city in acquiring and co-signing applications for shares into other water sources. Letting you know when some are available. I don't know how often you find out shares are available. Not very,
Once a year.
once a year.
Once a year, when it's time to pay for
Well,
it?
no, I mean,
Even then, not very often.
basically, they just go straight to the secretary and transfer them over, and I sign the certificates. By then, it's basically done, so
Yeah.
they never call me. and-
You never know when somebody's looking to sell shares.
Yeah, I mean, once in a blue moon, they'll call me, but usually it's in the paper or something.
So I guess I ask you that question, how do we get to the point where we can make that 60 acre feet, make these folks that are in Storm Haven whole on that well? How do we do
Well,
that?
yeah, so we as a company don't have the water, the shareholders have.
Right, and I'm not saying you give us the sheriff, I'm saying, how do we purchase those shares?
From,
How do we work with the irrigation company to get those shares?
How can you help us solve the problem that we're dealing with? Not just us solve the problem.
I mean, there's no doubt Daniel water is the best source for in there, Daniel irrigation water. But getting those from private shareholders that no longer need those is a little bit of a challenge. But, I don't know if the companies, we can talk as a board about options of sending a notice out to shareholders that there's a need. Those interested, contact the city for, whoever your contact is about trading those. And then as the company board, we would simply discuss with you and then support your change to get that, to amend that well rate so that it has the full volume of water that it needs.
So that's what we're looking for, is just a cooperation between the boards so that we can make these folks whole. If there was a mistake, none of us made it, obviously, before our time, but we're gonna own it.
Well, believe me, this is not the only one that's on paper that looks like that and is not, is not right. So
Right.
there's a lot of those.
And so that, I think that's what, at least that's just my opinion, that's what we're looking for, is some working together and moving forward, and like we said, we got the agreement, look at it.
So would you want us to meet with just a couple of individuals or with the whole?
We wouldn't have a quorum, so yeah, we just meet like we did the last meeting and
Okay.
and then bring it, if needed be, bring it to council again, depending on what's discussed and brought out, and maybe call up a special council meeting if needs be after our meeting.
So who would be the best person to contact for us? You or Eric? Okay. Well, we'll do that. So, appreciate it, thank you.
Excuse me, do you have a website where your bylaws or anything are on?
Daniel Irrigation Company does not have a website with bylaws,
Okay,
but as a shareholder, Daniel Town, if they would like a copy of the bylaws, they just need to contact our secretary and
Okay.
she'll make you a copy and give it to you. So,
And that is?
Darlene Luke,
Okay.
and don't know the phone number off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you get a hold of her. And
Probably have
all
it.
shareholders are entitled to open information on the company.
Okay.
And we are having an annual meeting
Wednesday?
on Wednesday in 2 days.
Oh,
So
okay.
any shareholders here want to attend that,
Okay.
welcome.
Moving forward.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks.
That takes care of item number 4. We'll be moving into public hearing for Stormhaven Code on sewer standards and collection box and rates. Before I call for to move into public hearing, I'd like to remind everyone that any comment, I'd really appreciate if people would come up. It makes it really easy for Mary to get names and to get content. And so if someone would like to speak, I'd really ask you to come up here and speak and ask whatever question you might like to do. Chair will entertain a motion to go into public hearing with regards to Stormhaven.
Motion to go out of regular session and open the public hearing for Stonehaven.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're now out of regular session and then the public hearing with regards to Stormhaven. At this point, I'd like to, Ryan, if you have anything you wanted to start off with as far as, there's a lot of issues tonight with regards to the fees and sewer, and so we're gonna probably talk about a few of them. We have some numbers, but not hard numbers, but discuss the issue.
So at the last couple meetings, we've talked about the number of sewer backups and sewer problems we've been having. And the town asked me to do 2 things, one of which I have done and one of which is still pending. But we'd already invited everybody, so we're gonna hopefully have a conversation tonight. The first one is that we've been having backups about once a quarter, and we have a couple different places that are known issues and known problems. But every time we have the truck come up and pump, it's about $3,000, and they're coming up at least once a quarter. So that's about $12,000 a year. So I was hoping to have all the numbers on exactly how much revenue we collect and what the expenses are. I don't have all that. We're still working through breaking that out of the books. So I don't have all those details. But suffice it to say, at $3,000 a quarter or $12,000 a year, in addition to the historic expenses, that works out to about $54 a month per connection. And so it's safe to say that we're running in the red by a wide margin. And so the council thought it would be wise to start the discussion on rates for the sewer system, as I don't see that cleaning frequency going down any, and some capital improvements to repair some of those reoccurring clogs are probably inevitable. We did talk about applying for funding this year. The sewer projects were not ranked high enough, and so we did not get a grant this year to do anything with the sewer like we did for the water system last year. We can certainly put that on the table and try again next year. There are some loans available, but loans have to be repaid, which require rates high enough to justify the repayment. And so I think the first part of that is the rates. The discussion is costs are going up and rates have not followed. The second half of that was how can we deal with some of the clogs? And one of the problems we keep seeing when the pumper truck comes out is that there's rags and other trash and debris that generally shouldn't be in a sewer system. And in a mechanical treatment system, it's one thing, we put in screens, we filter it out, they fill up a dumpster, and we all say don't do it, but it's really not that big a deal to capture the screens. In this particular system, we don't have a mechanical treatment system, we don't have mechanical screens. All of that stuff gets hopefully down to the septic tank, it gets caught in the septic tank. But as we're having more failures of the system upstream, and we have much smaller pipes than most people would have, we would have in a public sewer system today, these rags and other debris are clogging, and that's what's causing a lot of the problems. And so one of the details we came up with and for discussion tonight is to adopt basically a residential connection, a residential trash trap. Very similar to what you would do on a commercial connection of a grease trap. And so on new connections or upgraded connections, correct me if I'm wrong, council, I don't think we've asked everyone to go back and install one of these.
We haven't yet.
At least not today. But as connections get replaced or additions get done or laterals get fixed, to install one of these, which would collect those rags and debris and trash that shouldn't be in the lines, but it would capture it before it got into the main, so that we would have fewer issues in the main and extend the life of the system a little bit longer. It's a little uncommon in my experience to put those on residential. It's very common, almost ubiquitous to do it at commercial connections where inevitably grease and fats and other things get in the lines no matter what you do. So those are the two things I was asked to do, and I guess I can pass around. This is a typical detail. We worked hard on this trash collector, not that it shows in great detail, but to keep it small and try to be as inexpensive as possible. So it's the smallest septic tank you can buy. It's a section of plastic pipe. It's a wet well. It's something that's fairly inexpensive. The idea is something that would collect the debris that's not supposed to be in the system before it got into that lateral and caused a plug. Was that it? Did I do anything else?
You might get called back up. Okay.
Okay.
Anything from the council before I open up with, yeah?
I've got a few more copies if I'm gonna send that back. That across. That across.
Anyone has any questions or comments, certainly come up and ask or voice those comments. Or, as you can tell, we're trying to not be too much, but not be too little. There's a lot of things that we're trying to take care of up there, but I know there's not enough folks to make it easy on everybody. So, anyway, look some comments or questions.
I actually do. My dad is the one that put Stormhaven in. The things he put in were what was required at the time, and I understand there's a problem with them now, but I have never gotten notice from Daniels about the things you weren't supposed to put in the sewer system. When I was running it, we were required to send those at least once a year. Have you been doing that, sending them to the residents when you send the bills?
I believe they've gone out at times, whether it's once a year or not.
I have no idea, but that's what they required me to do at the time. And I did not luckily have a problem with clogs maybe twice in all the years I owned it. So I'm wondering if we have so many new residents that they don't realize they can't dump anything like that down. And if you send out something that explained to them how big the pipe was and the fact that you can't dump all these different things down, it might help. Don't know, but it might.
So did you get that notice in this?
No, for this meeting, no, we have a website, Stormhaven Residents, and Lisa Dinga kind of started it, and she posted it on that website.
Okay, it's also on the town website also.
Yeah, so,
DanielUtah.org down the bottom. How many people got their notices for the meeting tonight? So there was,
I also posted it on our neighborhood page. It would be really
Yeah.
helpful if the town of Daniel could have a Facebook page. I know you guys have not wanted to do that.
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
And that is helpful, I'm sure, to get that information around to the folks there. I mean, I knew about it before. Thank you, Susan. Anybody else?
I got a question to ask. Name's Bruce Olson. My parents live in Stormhaven, and so I'm kind of representing them. They're in their 90s. So when you start raising the prices, I know when Susie had it, and I understand that was a private deal, is paying like $20 a month. And you say that the rates aren't taking care of it, it's gone up 5 times now. It's up to almost, what, $100 now? And for them, it's hurting them. I guess my concerns is we are listening to doing a lot of maintenance just on Storm Haven septic system. Is that right? How big is your town is my first question. And why is one neighborhood have to pay for the whole thing that's a system that's under the city? You know, ours down in West Jordan, where I live, we're responsible for our sewer line and stuff to the city line. And from there on, everything is taken care of by the city, and they're charging, or they're paid for repairs and updates. And I understand that maybe they're not paying enough in that one little neighborhood to take care of that one system, but yet as a city, and you guys gathering as a city, everybody should be paying for everybody, I would think. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe that's what's happening. I'm just talking here a little bit. But to me, everybody should be paying for the repairs. And again, it sounds like that their fees are gonna go up in that neighborhood for all the fixes and things. I also feel that it's only fair that they pay the same for their sewer and for their water as everybody else in the whole city. Just because they're in one neighborhood, and it might be, I don't know how it's working and stuff. But if they're getting charged more for things that's happened, just like you said earlier, we're paying for problems that other people's done, trying to get water rights and different things that had nothing to do with us. Well, as them being owners, they don't have no control over what's happening either, as far as a system that's not functioning well. But my feelings are that everybody in the whole city should have the same sewer bill, the same water bill, and any problems throughout the whole city should be taken care of through that funds.
I'll just answer that just a little bit. So up to this point, there's been 2 water systems. We only have 1 sewer system, which is this system we're talking about. There's no other sewer system in the town. So this is kind of a unique difference. Other communities certainly have those types, but not a whole lot. So that's what this discussion is about, is to hear comments from you and the folks that's what we're looking for. So appreciate your comment.
Okay, and if it's a big issue and everybody is not on their sewer system portion, and I understand that some of them might be on their own personal septic tank up there, instead of having a great big bill coming through this city, is there a chance or a way, if they want to, I shouldn't be speaking because I don't have any property up there or anything, is there a way that they can have their own septic system set up for their house? Which I understand that the creek that's going through there is probably one of the issues that is stopping individual personal septic tank systems, but.
There's multiple, but for sure. Thank you.
I can answer that one.
Susan, if you want to go there, if you want.
I didn't know I was being. Okay, basically, when the system was put in, the state required that there be a septic system for Storm Haven Plat A. I don't know why. My dad's long dead. I'm 70 this year. So he just kind of dumped the whole system on me, and I ran it and kept it in as good a shape as I could. But basically, I'm pretty sure it was the state that required that subdivision, because it was half-acre lots, that it have its own sewer system. So that's why you have the sewer system, and I don't know if the state would even let them put in separate septic tanks. But at the time, that was in 1969-70, when the sewer system was put in, but it was required by the state.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. I just wondered, Brian, is
Your name?
Don Mike, sorry.
You're gonna call me by name, I'm in trouble. Anyone have tomatoes?
Where is the leaks occurring? Is it in the drain field or is it in the tank? Or how do you isolate, you know?
So far, knock on wood,
Just coming out of
the tank and the drain fields have been okay.
Okay.
I've worried every day that, you know, one of these days they're not gonna be okay, but so far they've been okay. The problem is in the collection network, so mainly on that lower part of Cove Lane where we have the sewer in the street, it's about 10 or 12 feet deep. We've got a couple of, it's a 4-inch pipe that's collapsed in sections. And so somehow water gets, you know, sewage, sorry, I should call it water, sewage gets through there and makes it to the tank. But it's clogged up enough that we haven't been able to get the camera through there. We've talked to a couple of folks that are willing to get aggressive with cleaning. But the problem with aggressive cleaning is that sometimes it works and sometimes it just finishes the pipe off. And so we've been hesitant, we've been aggressive as we dare without making it worse. And so that's one clog. We have a couple other pipes where joints have slipped or broken. And so it's a catch point. And so debris catches on them and over time it builds up and then eventually we have a backup.
I just
The last one
wondered
was
if it
the
could be
Christmas.
isolated, you know, where the logs are coming from, or, you know, which residents, or if we can approach somebody individually.
I can certainly give you a map of where the clogs are.
Okay,
And I can tell you that the debris is coming from upstream.
yeah, okay. I just wondered.
So,
They don't have bigger problems, or at least when he's pumping it out of the tank.
Yeah.
If he's getting
We do get a lot of debris out of the tank, but these clogs are the more immediate problem. And so I can agree that if you were, say, the last one on the system, since you are, that if the clogs were coming before that, you would argue that you didn't put the rag in the system. So there are 18 of your neighbors to talk to.
I understand, and it's just, you know, it's, not trying to get compensation or anything like that, but it's just, you know, we're all in this, you know, 18 of us anyway, are in this together. And I think we realize what's like, you know, run out of money before the bills are all paid. And how, well, I can sympathize with Daniel City for the problem they're incurring, but as far as a resident, I mean, we moved in, we buy property, we buy a home, and we assume that the system that we're buying into is adequate. You know, if it's a multi-use system, then it's operated by state codes and requirements, and so you
Problem is
you
they
think
get
you're-
old,
sorry, what?
the systems get old.
Oh, of course
Once
they do,
they're in
I
there.
understand, but those codes and requirements are made to maintain, update, and replace systems too. And I understand what Daniel's problem is, but I just, you know, I just want it to be a two-way street, us working with you and you working with us. I mean, we had the $13 sewer bill last September. You raised it to 40, I believe. And if I understand now, you're trying to raise it to 80, which, you know, our water and sewer is 40. Anyway, I'm just asking for it to work both ways, because there are some residents that are getting just understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, I think that what I was asked to do is try to figure out a rate to cover costs. If we can fix the rag issue, if the clogs will go down, I haven't heard anyone at the council level ask me how high can we raise the rates. The number they asked me to compute was how high, you know, what does it need to cover the costs? And then I was also asked to address some of the other money. Yeah, can we talk tomorrow? Thanks.
Hey Ryan, well, rather than throwing Band-Aids, what's that?
Your name, just.
I'm Wayne,
Way
sorry,
there.
and I don't like to get up in front of people. But instead of throwing money or Band-Aids, maybe if we're gonna have an increase, let's fix the problem and make the fix right.
can agree with that. Just because I was asked, let me get this out real quick. As far as money that the town has expended up in Storm Haven because to address the comments of we're in this together. In 2012 and 14, we replaced those 2 culverts after the flooding. The total on that was almost $600,000 and the town contributed over $150,000. We got a CDBG grant for $40,000 where we put that generator in. You want to talk about the efficiency of the generator, but hey, it was a good try. We also replaced all the water meters and did a couple other things that were beneficial at the time. And that, the town contributed about $10,000 of that. And then the well project that everyone loved this spring, it was faster than anticipated. And finally got the new well working about a month later than we'd all have liked it working. It was about $300K and the town contributed over $40,000 to that project. So since 2012, between grants and what the town's contributed, it's been over $1 million to the Storm Haven neighborhood, and the town has contributed over $200,000.
Thank you.
Does that cover?
Yep.
To your point, I did a presentation last time we raised rates and talked about different options and long-term solutions. And unfortunately, all of them were, at this time, really unviable. We talked about going to a low-pressure system, replacing the drainage network with, the current collection network. I'm going to say it's collecting, even though I have my doubts. We're going to go with collection network with a low-pressure system, and everybody kind of got their own pump, and then it went up to a regional system, and we connected to Twin Creeks. We talked about going to individual septic systems, and we talked about the pros and cons, and I kind of presented some rough costs. The biggest issue with that is the county health department doesn't support it, and there's a lot of lots that it just isn't viable. And so in a lot of ways, that makes the problem worse, because we go from 19 connections down to 5, but the costs stay the same. Well, that didn't help those 5 very much. And so we presented a number of options, including replacing it with a gravity network and a central lift station, and then connecting to Twin Creek. So we presented 4 or 5 different options. All of those were incredibly cost prohibitive, and the biggest thing is trying to save up a cash reserve so that we can do things. If we had some money in the bank when these things came up, it would be easy to say, let's dig up this problem and fix it. The problem is that even as aggressive as we've been in raising rates, we haven't been able to get ahead of the curve. And so that's kind of where the issue has been. I don't disagree with trying to do things right.
Have we looked at, from the manhole in front of my place on Storm Haven, the break is just below Paul and Lisa's, between there and the tank. How hard would it be to replace that section and then maybe another section another time, and let's start really zeroing in on those breaks and let's get them fixed.
We have looked at that for sure. But the last few years, contractors have been really busy and costs have been really high. And so we've been trying to make it work for a few more years, thinking things are gonna slow down and somebody will get
But if
hungry.
we're spending $12,000 a year to pump it, I'm sure we can probably rent a backhoe over there and share some
Fix a
labor
section.
and fix it section at a time and make it better.
Well, I entered those, is that $3,000 actual cost?
Yes,
Pump it?
that's the bill. That's the bill from the pumpers. So a big part of that is, hi, it's Christmas Eve, can you be up here in an hour? That one was more than 3,000.
Last pump, it wasn't a mist system, but it was a large system, and I think it was $1,000. And I just wondered if we should shop around, I guess.
So on the regular tank cleanings, we absolutely do, and those we have been getting for a lot less than that. But the problem is on the backup, when there's sewage in the street, there's a little less shopping around that happens, because it's kind of, it's more of a shop around for who can show up and when.
Sure.
We've talked with Twin Creeks and JSSD and the county that all have ACT trucks to see if they're available. The last 3 times we've had a problem, all of their trucks were otherwise occupied and they couldn't help. But we've extended out. I think I've certainly reached out to everyone and locally with a vac truck that could help us, and tried to get agreements with them to help us when they can. To date, their availability and our problems haven't overlapped yet. I don't disagree at all about digging up sections at a time, and we've certainly talked about that. I think that the cost to do that, we can try to get bids. We've got some contractors in the room. It's that 10 and 12 foot deep right in the middle of the road that makes it expensive. And I agree with you, $12,000 a year, you can do a lot of other things. But, especially if that's going to grow or get worse.
Well, it's not going to get better.
If the trash went away, it might, is what,
It's not gonna fix it, there's a break. It's not, the trash in it's just